If you went back in time 10 years ago and told people that Donald Trump would not only be elected US president, but would also be involved in brokering peace to the Middle East, you might have got some strange looks. However, that is what's happened with the Abraham Accords. Israel signed peace and normalisation agreements with Morocco, the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain.
Yes, well, in a further sign of thawing relations between Israel and Arab states, foreign ministers from the UAE, Bahrain, Morocco and Egypt all went to travel to southern Israel for a special summit where they were joined by Israel's foreign minister and US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Yes, indeed. Well, joining us to discuss this more and perhaps explain why this is such a big deal is Richard Pater, Director of the Britain-Israel Communications and Research Centre, which is, of course, a think tank. Richard, thank you very, very much for joining us. So how significant is this development, then?
Thank you very much for having me, first of all. I think it's a really significant development. This is the first time that Israel has played host to Arab neighbours, Arab peace partners. We've seen previous summits in the past, usually convened by the US, but this one, having Israel hosting it, brings it to a new level of friendships and close coordination. There's also some significance in the venue that was chosen to host this conference. As you mentioned, it's in the Negev Desert in the south of Israel, very close to the home of the first Prime Minister of Israel, David Ben-Gurion, and in fact his gravesite as well, and very much embodies kind of the Zionism and the principles that Israel was founded upon. So having these Arab partners here, recognizing that and engaging with Israel on so many multi-range substantial issues is definitely a cause for optimism.
Yeah, and these, it's called the Abraham Accords to sort of emphasise that shared connection. They're both Abrahamic religions, of course, Judaism and Islam. So there is that sort of emphasis on unity, even in the name. How much unity is there really in the positions of these two sides substantively? Is this all just diplomatic appearances, or is there actually substantive movement in the thawing of relations between the two sides?
So first of all, you're absolutely right. And it's easy sometimes for us to be cynical of these things. But the significance of naming it the Abraham Accords, kind of the father of the three monotheistic faiths, Judaism, Christianity and Islam, and finding that commonality in the heritage is a very significant symbolism. As I mentioned, kind of when you look at Israel has developed bilateral close ties with all of those countries that participate in this conference, and they're now trying to bring this regional element to it as well. There's no doubt that the top line and kind of the timing of it is around the concern over the return of the nuclear deal with Iran and the shared threat that Iran poses to Israel and the other Sunni Arab countries as well.
Yeah, and what role has Donald Trump had in all of this, then?
So I think I can't think of another US policy that has kind of survived the continuity from Trump through to Biden. And I can't think of any other Trump policies offhand that I would seek to kind of to promote and to endorse. But this one has worked. It started off kind of as partly quite an engagement of kind of Trump new deals, who knew kind of to bring that element of bringing the side together. And so it's proved that nature has only been enhanced now by the partners themselves. And I think it's significant, again, that the US didn't host this, but although this was started off by a US initiative, it now has taken on a life of its own and across kind of a whole range of sectors: economic cooperation, energy concerns, green energy and security. There are many issues that Israel shares with their neighbours that they're now able to work together, hopefully for a better future for everyone.
Good stuff. Richard, thank you very much. Richard Pater, Director of the Britain-Israel Communications and Research Centre. Just wishing you supposedly the latest that's going on about the Abraham Accords.